History doesn't change in a single day. It shifts slowly, quietly, when fear is ignored, when hate is tolerated, and when the wrong person gains power. This is the story of how Adolf Hitler pushed the world into the deadliest war in history and how it all came crashing down. After World War I, Germany was on its knees. The nation was forced to accept a humiliating defeat, pay crushing penalties, and give up vast territories. The German economy collapsed. Their money became worthless. Millions lost their jobs, but worse than all that, their pride was destroyed. In the middle of this chaos, people weren't looking for complex truths. They were desperate for hope, and Adolf Hitler gave them exactly that, a powerful hope, mixed with dangerous lies. He told the German people they were a superior race. He told them their suffering wasn't their fault, and he gave them enemies to blame. The victors of World War I, the politicians who signed the treaty, and, most tragically, the Jewish people. Slowly at first, the crowds started to gather. The flags began to rise. The voices grew louder, all following one man. In 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within just a few months, democracy was dismantled. Germany became a dictatorship, ruled by one man's will. Hitler's goal was simple, but terrifying: to expand Germany's borders and create a massive empire, no matter the cost. He began rebuilding the army, the air force, and the navy in secret, directly violating the international treaties Germany had signed. The world watched, but it hesitated. Britain and France, still scarred by the memory of World War I, feared another conflict. So, they chose appeasement, hoping that giving in to some of his demands would satisfy him. They chose silence, but that silence only empowered Hitler. In 1938, his army marched into Austria, absorbing it into Germany without a single shot fired. There was no resistance, and no punishment from the international community. A few months later, Hitler demanded parts of Czechoslovakia. Again, European leaders gave in, hoping it would be his final demand. By now, Hitler believed one thing with absolute certainty: no one would dare to stop him. On September 1st, 1939, German tanks smashed across the border into Poland. This time, the world could no longer look away. Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. Germany unleashed a new kind of warfare, something the world had never seen before. Planes, tanks, and soldiers moved with terrifying speed and coordination. It was called Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. Poland collapsed in weeks. Then Denmark and Norway fell. Then Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. In the spring of 1940, in a stunning turn of events, France, one of the world's great powers, fell. Europe was in shock. Hitler now controlled most of the continent, but one country refused to surrender: Great Britain. Led by the defiant Winston Churchill, the British stood alone. German planes bombed London and other cities, night after night, in a campaign known as the Blitz. Buildings crumbled, but British spirit did not survive. Frustrated and unable to break Britain, Hitler made his most fatal mistake. In June 1941, he turned his armies east and launched a surprise invasion of the Soviet Union. This was the beginning of his downfall. The Soviet Union was vast and unforgiving. The Russian winter was a brutal, deadly enemy in itself. German supply lines stretched to the breaking point, and then failed. Millions of soldiers, on both sides, died in the freezing mud and snow. The war in the East became a meat grinder, bleeding Hitler's army dry. Now, let's turn our attention across the Atlantic. The United States had been watching the war from a distance. Most Americans wanted to stay out of it. They wanted peace, not another bloody European conflict. But on December 7th, 1941, everything changed. The Empire of Japan, Germany's ally, launched a devastating surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The next day, America declared war on Japan, and just a few days later, Germany declared war on the United States. America was now fully in World War II, and the entire balance of power on the planet shifted. America didn't just bring soldiers to the fight. It brought its colossal industrial might. It was called the Arsenal of Democracy. Factories that once made cars now churned out tanks and planes. Shipyards built new vessels at an astonishing rate. Weapons, supplies, and food flooded the Allied war effort. Germany was now facing a three-front war against the combined powers of Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and the United States. It was a fight it could not win. The turning point came in 1943. On the Eastern Front, the German army suffered a catastrophic, crushing defeat at the Battle of Stalingrad. An entire army was lost. The myth of German invincibility was shattered forever. From that moment on, the war in Europe only moved in one direction. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched the largest amphibious invasion in history. Thousands of American, British, and Canadian soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy, France, under withering fire. It was one of the most difficult and dangerous military operations ever attempted by it. A new front was opened, and Germany was now being squeezed from the west and the east. Inside Germany, the world Hitler had built was collapsing. Allied bombers turned cities into rubble. Food run out. The hope he had once offered had turned to ash and despair. By the spring of 1945, Soviet soldiers were fighting in the streets of Berlin, and American and British forces were closing in from the other side. Hiding in an underground bunker beneath the ruins of his capital, Adolf Hitler refused to accept reality. On April 30th, 1945, with the sound of battle raging above him, he ended his own life. Germany surrendered unconditionally just days later. The war in Europe was finally over. So, who really won World War II? On paper, it was the Allies, America, Britain, the Soviet Union, and many other nations. The United States emerged as the world's strongest superpower. Its economy was booming, its homeland untouched by war, and its military was unmatched. The Soviet Union also emerged as a global power, but at a staggering, almost unimaginable human cost. But deeper truth is this. In a war of this scale, humanity itself lost. Over 60 million people were killed. 6 million Jewish men, women, and children were systematically murdered in the Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history. Entire generations were wiped out. World War II was not just a war between countries. It was a profound and terrible lesson. A lesson about the dangers of unchecked power, the poison of hate, and the catastrophic cost of silence. Adolf Hitler's name doesn't live on as a conqueror or a hero. It remains what it should be, a warning to us all. Thanks for watching. If you found this story important, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more.